The crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in amber light, but none of it seemed to reach her corner. Minji pressed her spine against the cream-colored wall of the Shilla Hotel's grand ballroom, wishing she could dissolve into the silk wallpaper. The champagne in her crystal flute had gone as flat as her hopes for the evening. She hadn't wanted to attend this charity gala. Her roommate Soyeon had practically shoved the invitation into her hands. "You need to make connections, Minji," Soyeon had insisted with that determined gleam in her eyes. "My cousin can't use this ticket and it costs a lot of money. You've been hiding since that disaster with Minho." "It's been 1 year already, Minji." 1 year since Minji discovered her fiancé had been living two completely different lives. 1 year of working exhausting double shifts at the prestigious restaurant Amor in Gangnam just to cover rent after leaving their shared apartment. 1 year of feeling like she didn't exist. Tonight, she was proving herself right about the invisibility. Despite the simple black dress she'd saved 6 months to afford, elegant fabric hugging her slender frame, not one person had approached her in the 4 hours since arrival. Soyeon had vanished with some venture capitalist 10 minutes after they walked through the doors. Minji took another sip of lukewarm champagne and grimaced. The Shilla Hotel ballroom buzzed with animated conversation and polished laughter. Expensive perfume mingled with the unmistakable scent of wealth. Women draped themselves in diamonds while men in perfectly tailored suits exchanged business cards with practiced smiles. Everyone knew exactly where they belonged, everyone except her. A server glided past and Minji placed her glass on his silver tray, ready to find Soyeon and escape. That was when the atmosphere shifted, like storm clouds gathering on a clear day. The crowd near the entrance parted smoothly. Conversation stuttered for one breathless moment before resuming at a higher, more excited pitch. Minji pushed up on her toes, curiosity temporarily overriding her desire to flee. A group of men had entered, all wearing impeccable suits, but the one at the center commanded every eye in the room. Even from across the vast space, his authority was unmistakable. Tall, with shoulders that filled his midnight blue suit to absolute perfection, he moved with the controlled grace of something powerful and refined. Dark hair fell in artfully styled waves, framing features that looked sculpted by a master. Sharp angles and striking symmetry. "That's Kang Jae-hyun," a woman standing nearby whispered urgently to her companion. "I didn't know he was back in Seoul." "Apparently he's been keeping a low profile," her friend replied in hushed tones. "They say he's taken complete control of his father's companies now." The slight hesitation on the word companies made Minji's skin prickle with warning. She didn't need further explanation. Everyone in Seoul knew the Kang name, though it was rarely spoken casually. She should leave immediately. But her feet refused to cooperate as she watched him scan the crowded room. He acknowledged a few people with subtle nods, paused briefly to shake hands with others, while his companions, 3 men whose imposing frames suggested they weren't chosen for conversation, maintained a careful protective circle around him. For one fleeting, absurd moment, Minji imagined those dark eyes finding her in her forgotten corner. She quickly dismissed the ridiculous thought. Men like Kang Jae-hyun didn't notice women like her. They noticed the willowy models and sophisticated heiresses currently circling him like graceful competitors. Minji finally tore her gaze away and pushed off from the wall. Time to find Soyeon and escape this world where she so obviously didn't belong. She made it halfway across the polished marble floor when she collided squarely with a server carrying a tray of canapés. The silver platter clattered dramatically to the floor, sending delicate pastries scattering in every direction. The crash echoed throughout the entire ballroom like a gunshot. "I'm so sorry," Minji gasped, immediately dropping to her knees to help gather the ruined food. Her cheeks burned fire-hot as she felt dozens of eyes pivot toward the disruption. This was exactly why she didn't belong here. In a world of grace and refinement, she was all awkward angles and catastrophic missteps. The server muttered something under his breath as he quickly scooped up the mess. Minji reached for a fallen pastry and found herself staring at a pair of immaculately polished Italian leather shoes. Her gaze traveled slowly upward, perfectly tailored charcoal trousers, a jacket that probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. And finally, the face she'd been watching from across the room moments before. Kang Jae-hyun was even more devastating up close. His eyes weren't simply dark, they were bottomless, like staring into deep water at midnight. A shadow of stubble along his jaw somehow made him look both dangerous and impossibly attractive. "Are you all right?" His voice was deep with the barest trace of an accent she couldn't identify. Minji opened her mouth to respond, but no sound emerged. One of his security men stepped forward with his hand extended toward her, but Jian waved him back with a minimal gesture. Instead, he reached down himself, his large hand enveloping hers as he pulled her effortlessly to her feet. His skin was warm, his grip both firm and surprisingly gentle. A strange electric current seemed to pass between their connected palms, making her pulse jump erratically. "Yes, I'm fine." Minji finally found her voice, though it sounded breathless even to her own ears. "Just clumsy. I apologize for the disruption." His eyes held hers captive, and a slight smile curved his lips. No disruption at all. The server had finished cleaning and disappeared, but Jian hadn't released her hand. Minji became acutely aware that they were standing in the middle of the ballroom with curious glances being cast their direction from all sides. She gently tried to pull her hand back, but his grip tightened just enough to prevent her escape. "You haven't been enjoying yourself tonight," he observed. It wasn't a question. Minji blinked in surprise. "How would you possibly know that?" Something flickered in his eyes, amusement, perhaps. "I notice things. Like a beautiful woman standing alone all evening when she should be the center of everyone's attention." A startled laugh escaped her. "Now I know you have me confused with someone else." "I'm never confused about what I see." His gaze traveled deliberately over her face, making her feel both exposed and strangely cherished. "Dance with me. Again." Not a question. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" Because Minji glanced around at the watching eyes, the whispers behind manicured hands. "People are staring. Let them." His smile deepened, revealing a dimple in his right cheek that somehow made him seem both more human and infinitely more dangerous. "Dance with me, Minji." The sound of her name on his lips sent a jolt through her entire body. "How do you know my name?" Instead of answering, he placed his hand firmly on the small of her back and guided her toward the dance floor with confident authority. Minji should have resisted. She should have made an excuse and fled immediately. But something in the gentle pressure of his hand, in the absolute certainty with which he moved, made resistance feel impossible. The orchestra was playing something slow and achingly beautiful. As they reached the center of the gleaming floor, he turned to face her, one hand still warm on her back, the other taking her hand in his. Around them, other couples shifted to give them space. "I don't dance very well," Minji warned as he drew her closer. "Just follow my lead." And somehow she did. Her usual awkwardness melted away as he guided her through the steps with effortless skill. His body was solid and warm against hers, his movements confident and sure. The scent of him sandalwood and something darker, something uniquely his, filled her senses completely. "Are you going to tell me how you know my name?" she asked again, finding courage in the rhythm of their movement. His eyes met hers, and she had the unsettling feeling he could see past every defense she'd ever constructed. "I make it my business to know things." Lee Minji, 27 years old, graduated with honors in culinary arts, currently working at Amor in Gangnam, one of the finest restaurants in Seoul. "Though they don't appreciate your talents nearly enough." A chill ran through her despite the warmth of his body. "That's disturbing, is it?" he countered. "Or is it flattering to know that someone has taken genuine interest in you when so many others have failed to see your value?" Before she could formulate a response, he spun her out and then back into his arms, closer than before. Her chest pressed against his and she could feel the steady, strong beat of his heart. "Why me?" Minji whispered, unable to look away from his face. "Why not you?" he countered, his voice equally soft. "You're different. Authentic. In a room full of beautiful masks, you're refreshingly real." The music swelled around them, but it seemed distant now, as if they were enclosed in their own private bubbles separate from the world. His hand on her back pressed slightly firmer, possessively, drawing her impossibly closer. "After tonight," he said, his lips close to her ear, "everything changes for you." If you let it. Warning bells sounded in the back of her mind. This man was dangerous, not just because of who he was and what he might do, but because of how he made her feel seen, significant, desired. After months of invisibility, those feelings were more intoxicating than any champagne. And if I don't want things to change? Minji challenged, even as her body betrayed her by melting further into his embrace. His smile was slow and supremely confident. You do. I can feel it. His hand slid from her back to her waist, his fingers playing possessively across the fabric. Besides, it's already too late. The music ended, but he didn't release her. Around them, people were watching openly now, whispering urgently behind their hands. Minji spotted Soyeon across the room, her eyes wide with shock and something like fear. I should go, Minji said, reality intruding on the strange spell he had woven around her. Should you? He finally loosened his hold, but kept his hand proprietarily on her waist. Or should you stay and see what happens next? Minji opened her mouth to make an excuse, to retreat to the safety of her ordinary life, when a man in a dark suit approached quickly, leaning close to Jaehyun's ear to whisper something urgent. Something in Jaehyun's expression changed, instantly hardened into something cold and commanding before he nodded once sharply. He turned back to her, and for a moment, she thought she glimpsed genuine regret in his eyes. It seems business requires my immediate attention. But this isn't over, Minji. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising gentleness. I'll have someone drive you home safely. That's not necessary. It wasn't an offer. His tone remained soft, but there was steel beneath the silk. He signaled to one of his men. Taejun will see you home safely. And Minji, he leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear in a way that sent shivers down her spine. Lock your doors tonight. I'd hate for anything to happen to you before I see you again. With that cryptic warning, he pressed something into her hand, a small, heavy card, and then he was gone, moving through the crowd with his men flanking him protectively. Minji looked down at what he'd given her, a business card in heavy stock with just a phone. Nothing else. Soyeon appeared at her side immediately, breathless with excitement and concern warring on her face. Minji, what just happened? Do you know who that was? Minji nodded slowly, her fingertips tracing the embossed number on the card. Kang Jaehyun. Not just Kang Jaehyun. Soyeon lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. The Kang Jaehyun, his family practically owns half of Seoul. They say she lowered her voice even further. Dangerous. Minji looked toward the entrance where he had disappeared, still feeling the ghost of his touch on her skin, the warmth of his breath on her ear. I know, she whispered, clutching the card tighter in her palm. And that was exactly what terrified her most. Not just who he was, but the fact that despite everything she knew about him, everything she absolutely should fear, all she wanted was to see him again. As Soyeon continued to pepper her with anxious questions, Minji's gaze drifted to where Taejun stood waiting nearby, his expression impassive but watchful. The weight of Jaehyun's parting words settled over her like a heavy cloak. Lock your doors tonight. What exactly had she stumbled into with one clumsy misstep and a single dance? The sleek black Genesis sedan glided through Seoul's night-lit streets, its tinted windows separating Minji from the bustling world outside. Taejun, Jaehyun's man, hadn't spoken a single word since helping her into the luxury vehicle's plush interior. Soyeon had tried to insist on coming along, but something in Taejun's expressionless face had made her back down immediately. She'd extracted a promise that Minji would call the moment she got home. It's just up here, Minji said, breaking the heavy silence as they approached her apartment building in Mapogu. Nothing fancy, a modest renovated building split into units, hers being the smallest on the third floor. Taejun's eyes met hers briefly in the rearview mirror, acknowledging her words with the slightest nod. As the car stopped smoothly, Minji expected him to simply let her out. Instead, he stepped out and opened her door, scanning the quiet street with practiced vigilance before offering her his hand. Thank you for the ride, Minji said, clutching her small purse where she'd tucked away Jaehyun's card. Mr. Kang asked me to see you to your door. His voice was surprisingly gentle for a man his size. Minji wanted to refuse, to maintain some semblance of control over this increasingly bizarre evening, but the memory of Jian's warning echoed in her mind. She nodded and led the way into the building. Jian followed her up the 3 flights of stairs, his footfalls nearly silent behind her. At her door, she turned, expecting him to leave, but he gestured for her keys. "I need to check inside first." Minji blinked. "Excuse me." Mr. Kang's instructions were clear. "I need to make sure your apartment is secure before I leave." A chill ran down her spine. Why wouldn't it be secure? Taejun's expression remained unchanged. "It's just a precaution, miss." Reluctantly, Minji handed over her keys. He entered first, moving through her small apartment with surprising efficiency, checking the bathroom, the bedroom, even opening her closet doors. Only then did he nod, apparently satisfied. "Lock up behind me," he instructed, returning her keys. "Don't open the door unless you know exactly who's on the other side." He paused, then added more gently, "Mr. Kang will contact you soon. When, not if." The simple word provided a measure of reassurance she hadn't realized she needed. After he left, Minji did as he asked, turning the heavy locks with decisive clicks. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by her modest belongings, she leaned against the wall, trying to process the evening's events. Her phone buzzed, Soyeon as promised, checking that she'd made it home safely. Minji reassured her briefly, deflecting her flood of questions with a promise to talk tomorrow. Alone finally, she kicked off her heels and padded to the kitchen, pouring a glass of water with trembling hands. The business card sat on her small counter, the gold number catching the light. What was she supposed to do with it? Call him? Wait for him to contact her? And why her? The question kept circling back endlessly. She was nobody, a line cook with dreams of opening her own restaurant someday, currently just trying to survive after her ex had left her with nothing but debt and broken trust. Men like Kang Jae-hyun didn't usually notice women like her, yet he had. Not just noticed, he had found her, known her name, even knew details about her life. The thought sent another shiver through her, this one not entirely from nervousness. Minji carried her glass of water to the window and looked out at Seoul's glittering lights. Somewhere out there, Kang Jae-hyun was handling his work, whatever that involved. The thought should have unsettled her more than it did. Sleep proved difficult that night. Every sound in the old building, every distant car horn had her sitting up in bed, heart beating fast. When she finally drifted off near dawn, she dreamed of dark eyes and steady hands guiding her through an endless dance. Morning came with gray light filtering through her blinds and the steady beeping of her alarm. For a moment, Minji lay disoriented, wondering if the previous night had been some elaborate illusion. But the business card on her nightstand, she had placed it there before sleeping, confirmed everything had been completely real. She showered and dressed for work, trying to push thoughts of Jae-hyun from her mind. It was Friday, which meant an intense day at Amor. The restaurant would be full, and Chef Park would be in one of his demanding moods. No time to dwell on unexpected encounters with powerful men. The day passed in the familiar blur of orders and controlled chaos in the kitchen. Minji was plating a beautifully seared salmon dish when Jian, one of the servers, appeared at her station with wide eyes. "Minji, there's someone asking for you out front." Her hand faltered, nearly disturbing the delicate arrangement of asparagus. "Asking for me?" "A customer." Jian nodded, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "He says his name is Jae Hyun. No last name." "But Minji," she lowered her voice. "He came with 2 very serious-looking men. And he's sitting at table 9. Table 9. The best table in the house, always reserved weeks in advance for special guests." "Tell him I'm working," Minji said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I can't just leave the line." Jian bit her lip uneasily. "I already told him that." He said. She lowered her voice even further. "He said he's willing to wait, but he would really like to see you now. And Minji, Chef Park already said it's fine. He even approved it immediately." Chef Park, who scolded anyone for the smallest mistake, had given her permission to leave the line during dinner service. Minji's stomach twisted with a mix of nerves and uncertainty. "Fine," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'll be right there." She took a moment to check her reflection in the polished surface of a steel refrigerator. Her face was flushed from the kitchen heat, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing she could do about it now. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the swinging doors into the elegant dining room. The restaurant hummed with soft conversation and the gentle sound of silverware against fine china. Minji's eyes found table 9 immediately. Jaehyun sat facing the door as if he had been calmly waiting for her to appear. Unlike his companions positioned at a nearby table, quietly observing the room, he was completely at ease, one hand resting on the white tablecloth beside a glass of juice. He wore a charcoal suit today, the crisp white of his shirt standing out against his warm skin tone. When he saw her, his lips curved into that same confident smile she remembered from the night before. He didn't wave or call to her. He simply watched her approach, his gaze steady. "Mr. Kang," Minji said when she reached his table, aware of curious glances from nearby diners. "Hein said you asked for me." "Jaehyun," he corrected smoothly, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Please sit. I'm working, and I've already cleared it with your chef." His eyes held hers. "Please, Minji." Just for a moment, reluctantly, she slid into the chair, keeping her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Up close in the restaurant's soft lighting, she could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes, the perfect symmetry of his features. "How did you sleep?" he asked, catching her off guard with the mundane question. "Fine," she lied. His smile told her he knew it was a lie. "No unexpected visitors? No disturbances?" Minji shook her head, unsettled by his questions. Why would there be? Instead of answering directly, he took a sip of his wine. "You look beautiful, even in chef's whites." The compliment caught her off guard, warming her cheeks. "Why are you here, Mr. Jaehyun? I wanted to see you again. Simple, direct, and to invite you to dinner tomorrow night." "Dinner?" Minji echoed, feeling foolish. "Yes. The meal people typically enjoy in the evening." His eyes held a hint of amusement. "I'd like to take you somewhere special." Despite everything, the warnings in her head, the whispers about who he was, the strange intensity of his interest, she felt a flutter of excitement. "Why me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Jaehyun leaned forward, his eyes intent on hers. "I told you last night. You're different, Minji. Real. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" "I don't know anything about your world," she said carefully. "Perhaps that's another reason." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. "Say yes." She should have said no. Every instinct for self-preservation screamed at her to decline, to extract herself from whatever game he was playing. But his touch sent electricity sparking through her veins, and the word that left her lips was, "Yes." His smile deepened, revealing that dangerous dimple. "Good. I'll send a car for you at 7 tomorrow evening." He slid a small package across the table. "Wear this." Before Minji could respond, he stood gracefully. "I won't keep you from your work any longer." "Until tomorrow, Minji." She remained seated, stunned, as he left the restaurant, his security falling into step around him protectively. Only when he was gone did she look down at the package, a small black velvet box tied with a simple silver ribbon. With trembling fingers, she untied it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, lay a necklace, a delicate silver chain supporting a single teardrop diamond that caught the light in hypnotic patterns. A small card underneath read simply, "To match your eyes." Her breath caught. The necklace was exquisite, undoubtedly expensive, and accepting it would mean something in acknowledgement of whatever was developing between them. A step into his world. Holy Hyan whispered, appearing beside her. "Is that real?" Minji closed the box quickly. "I have to get back to work." The rest of her shift passed in a daze. Chef Park didn't scold her for her absence from the line. In fact, he seemed almost deferential when she returned. She wondered exactly what Jaehyun had said to him. By the time she got home that night, exhaustion had settled deep in her bones, but sleep remained elusive. She took out the necklace again, letting the diamond catch the lamplight. To accept such a gift from a man she barely knew, a man with Jaehyun's reputation, seemed foolish at best, dangerous at worst. Yet she couldn't bring herself to put it away. Her phone rang, startling her. Unknown number. Her heart jumped as she answered. "Hello? Did you like it?" Jaehyun's voice was low, intimate in the darkness of her apartment. Minji clutched the phone tighter, It's beautiful. But I can't accept something like this. Why not? Because it's too much, too expensive, too meaningful for someone you just met. He chuckled softly. It's a necklace, Minji, not a proposal. And it's nowhere near the value of what I intend to give you. A shiver ran through her. What does that mean? It means I see your potential even if you don't yet. It means I want to know you better. It means tomorrow night is just the beginning. Minji swallowed hard. Beginning of what? That depends on you. His voice softened, quieter. Are your doors locked, Minji? The sudden change of subject caught her off guard. Yes. But good. Keep them that way. There was a pause, and she heard voices in the background. I have to go. Have a peaceful night, Minji. The line went quiet, leaving her staring at the phone, the necklace still clutched in her other hand. What was she getting herself into? Saturday dawned bright and clear, but Minji's mind was anything but. She spent the day moving between excitement and nerves, changing her outfit again and again before settling on a simple black dress different from the one she'd worn to the gala, but just as modest. At 6:30, she finally gave in and fastened the diamond necklace around her neck. The stone rested just at the hollow of her collarbone, cool and strangely comforting against her skin. At precisely 7, her buzzer rang. She expected Tae-jun, but when she opened the door, Jae-hyun himself stood there, holding a bouquet of white roses. He wore a black suit, neatly tailored, the jacket open to reveal a charcoal shirt underneath, no tie, the top buttons undone. His eyes moved slowly from her face to the necklace, then lower, taking in the dress before returning to meet her gaze. Something like quiet approval flickered in his expression. Perfect, he murmured, stepping forward to hand her the roses. His scent surrounded her, that same warm blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him. You look beautiful, Minji. Thank you, she managed, taking the flowers carefully. I didn't expect you to come yourself. He smiled, the expression softening his face completely. For you, I make exceptions. As Minji put the roses in water, she was aware of him moving through her small apartment, taking in the modest furnishings, the collection of cookbooks, the few personal photographs on her walls. You live alone, he observed. Not a question. Yes. She hesitated, then added, since my ex and I separated. Something shifted in his expression. The one who hurt you. Minji stilled. How did you know that? As I said, I make it my business to know things about people who interest me. He moved closer, his gaze steady. He made a terrible mistake. Anyone who had you and didn't appreciate it chose to lose something valuable. The intensity in his voice should have unsettled her. Instead, it sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. Well, he's gone now, she said quietly. Good. Jae-hyun reached out, his fingers brushing the diamond at her throat. This suits you, though nothing could truly add to your natural beauty. His touch lingered, warm against her skin. Minji found herself leaning slightly into it, drawn by something she couldn't fully explain. We should go, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Before what? His eyes softened, his hand rising to rest lightly against her cheek. Before I change my mind about dinner, she admitted. His smile was slow and knowing. We wouldn't want that, would we? He stepped back and offered his arm. Shall we? Outside, a sleek black Genesis G90 waited, Tae-jun holding the door open. As they approached, Minji noticed another car behind it, more company. She realized. Jae-hyun's hand rested gently at the small of her back as he helped her into the luxury vehicle. As they pulled smoothly away from the curb, Minji couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would shift everything. That by accepting his invitation and his gift, she was stepping into a new chapter she didn't fully understand yet. And the most unsettling part was how much she wanted to see what waited ahead. The restaurant wasn't in Seoul. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving the crowded city streets behind for winding coastal roads along the East Sea. Jae-hyun sat close beside her in the Genesis, his arm occasionally brushing against hers as the car moved along the curves. Each casual contact sent a quiet spark through her. Where are we going? Minji finally asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. A special place, he replied, his eyes reflecting the passing streetlights. Somewhere private where we won't be interrupted. The implications of his words hung in the air between them. Are you nervous? He asked, his voice low and intimate. Should I be? His lips curved into that now familiar smile. Not with me, Minji. Never with me. Eventually, the car turned down a narrow lane bordered by ancient pine trees, their branches forming a natural canopy overhead, dappling the moonlight. At the end of the drive stood a stunning cliffside villa, its white stone walls glowing against the night sky. Lights illuminated a terrace garden that appeared to spill right to the edge of the sea. Is this yours? Minji asked, unable to keep the from her voice as Tae-jun opened the door for them. One of my properties, Jae-hyun said, helping her from the car with natural grace. I prefer it for special occasions. His hand returned to the small of her back, warm and possessive as he guided her toward the entrance. The massive wooden doors swung open before they reached them, revealing a slender man in a black suit. Good evening, Mr. Kang, he said, bowing respectfully. Everything is prepared as you requested. Thank you, Min-sik. Jae-hyun's tone was cordial but carried an unmistakable note of authority. They stepped into a soaring entryway, marble floors gleaming beneath a crystal chandelier. The villa was a perfect blend of traditional Korean elegance and modern luxury, arched doorways leading to glimpses of sumptuous rooms beyond. Min-sik disappeared silently, and Minji realized they were now completely alone. No security visible, though she had no doubt they were nearby. Come, Jae-hyun said, taking her hand gently. I want to show you something before dinner. He led her through the villa to a set of glass doors that opened onto a stone terrace. The night air was cool and salt-tinged, carrying the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below. The terrace had been transformed into a private dining paradise. A table set for two, surrounded by hundreds of candles and hurricane lamps that flickered in the gentle breeze. White roses matching those he'd brought to her apartment spilled from crystal vases. Words failed her completely. Too much? He suggested, watching her reaction carefully. Minji shook her head slowly. Beautiful. Like something from a dream. His eyes softened as he looked at her. That's precisely what I wanted to give you tonight. A dream. He pulled out her chair gracefully, and she sat, still taking in the breathtaking setting. The table overlooked the dark expanse of ocean, the horizon a distant line where black sea met star-strewn sky. Min-sik reappeared silently with a bottle of champagne, pouring two glasses before retreating. Jae-hyun raised his glass to new beginnings. Minji hesitated only briefly before touching her glass to his. To new beginnings. The champagne was exquisite, like liquid gold bubbling on her tongue. Jae-hyun watched her over the rim of his glass, his eyes reflecting the candlelight. Tell me something you've never told anyone else, he said unexpectedly. The request caught her off guard. Why? Because I want to know you, Minji. Not the version of yourself that you show the world, the real you. She considered his request, taking another sip of champagne for courage. I sabotaged my ex-fiance's application to culinary school. We were both applying to the same prestigious program. There were only 2 spots available, and he'd been awful to me that week, criticizing my techniques, my ideas. So I may have accidentally spilled coffee on his application and then rewritten it with a few key errors. Jae-hyun's eyebrows rose with interest. And did he get in? No. But I did. He laughed then, a genuine sound of delight that transformed his face completely. Remind me never to cross you in the kitchen. Your turn, Minji said, emboldened by his reaction. Tell me something you've never told anyone. His smile faded slightly, his expression growing more contemplative. I never wanted to take over my father's business, he said after a moment. I wanted to study architecture. I designed this villa when I was 19. The confession surprised her deeply. Why didn't you pursue it?